go to this personas chart that John and I developed. It's a very simple way to try and home in on the customers that are likely to be most important to you. You can see there's two circles in the middle. Imagine this as an A4 page or as a poster. Two circles in the middle and two squares on either side. So it's a very simple structure. And what you do is within the first circle, you see it's numbered 1 there, personas. This is where you could list and describe the people in your target market that you're selling to or you're going to be selling to. And it might be people who are going to buy the product or service, but it could also be users, and you may need to distinguish buyers from users. If you can't name specific people who will be customers of yours, you need to describe them. So what's common across these customer types? It's a bit like the next stage beyond customer segmentation if you've done that. So describing the persona, the type of customer, what differentiates them from other people. Then you move to the left-hand side, where we go into a bit more detail on, first of all, the persona's goals. What are their core goals? What do they want to achieve that might be relevant to your product or service? So we want you to define a few core goals that the persona you'll be selling to must achieve. And then we go down to pain points. That's point number 3. So what are the main pain points that the personas are suffering from today? You see, you really need to understand these people really quite well. And one way of trying to do this is to imagine if your offering did not exist, what pain would the persona suffer from? So this is really getting to kind of must-have rather than nice to have, particularly if yours is a new business. For example, we were talking with Aisling earlier. You really need to be addressing a real pain point. Okay, so that's the left-hand side. And then we move to the right-hand side and start to describe your solutions, both the benefits that your solutions might offer, and then below it, mapping features onto those solutions that you think you've come up with. So at the top, you're listing the solutions or the value proposition to the customer that your offering brings to bear. And then below it, you try to map how essentially the features of your product or service map onto this desired solution proposition that you've described above. And then you start comparing across these different sections to see whether you're actually matching up properly your features and your solution to the goals of the customer persona and to their pain points. And one nice way of summarizing all that is in point 6, the proof point or the customer quote. So this is where very concisely you have to kind of nail this matching between what you're offering and what the persona wants. So that's in that last circle. And very often when you do this exercise, you'll find that there's a mismatch. And that's what this exercise brings out. And the whole idea is to do adjustment so that your product or service really fits a goal of the persona and it hits those pain points. So I'm going to hand over to Jamie now. Jamie's going to bring you through some specific examples of customer personas and pain points and goals they have. So over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thanks everyone for joining us today. As Jonathan mentioned earlier, I'm a freelance digital marketing consultant, and my previous role in the west of Ireland was marketing manager at a company called Hillwalk Tours. Hill Walk Tours are Ireland's leading hiking tours operator. They create itineraries in Ireland, in the UK, and in Spain for hiking enthusiasts and people who want to do long hikes and stay in kind of high quality accommodation along the way. In the example of Ireland, it would be B&Bs and guest houses in the UK. And it's really a global company. It's not a well-known company in Galway in the west of Ireland, but around the world it would be one of the leaders in adventure tourism. And last year turned over €3 million. With 27 staff based in the Galway Technology Centre. Unfortunately, the pandemic has hit the company really hard. The staff count has gone down, and indeed myself, I've left that company now, so I'm now fully freelance as a digital marketing consultant. But today I'd just like to share some feedback and some reflections on how the Hill Walk Tours marketing team operated and how we devised a marketing plan that yielded results of selling 3,000 hiking tours per year from our office in Galway. And a lot of it was based around what Jonathan was talking about previously, about defining those personas that can be targeted with personalized messaging to encourage them to come onto our website, to engage with our product, the hiking tours that we sell, and to eventually buy and book their tour with Hill Walk Tours. I remember when I was studying marketing in London a few years ago, the lecturer at the time said, you know, if you're creating a marketing plan that's going to yield results, you have to have personas, and your tactics and your marketing tactics should be driven by personas. And at the time, they were telling us this, but they weren't showing us what personas looked like. And I think it's because there's no defined, you know, there's no perfect example of how personas should look like, or the structure of how personas should be developed. But I'd like to kind of go through some example personas. These aren't the exact personas that we developed at Hill Walk Tours, but they're an example of how an SME or a small business can come up with personas that can then drive your marketing and answer the question that I definitely get most, and that I think we've seen quite frequently on these sessions over the past 4 weeks. And that question is, what platforms should I be on? What digital marketing should I be doing? And should I try a little bit of everything? And the answer to that third point, from my point of view, is definitely no. I think if you're going out there to try a little bit of everything, you don't know what your strategy is, and you might be struggling a little bit with defining those personas and deciding where your product is going to sell in terms of that digital space. So these are 3 personas that were example target ideal customers for selling hiking tours for Hill Walk Tours. And you might be wondering, how did we come up with this information? You know, are these real customers? They're not. And they were developed based around 6 years of customer data that we had for people that previously bought hiking tours with Hill Walk Tours. So I think it's really important as an SME to have a good CRM that can extract as much data as possible about the people who are buying your products, so that you can highlight trends and then develop these personas later on. And if you have years and years worth of customer data on the people that buy your products time and time again, those trends will emerge pretty easily. And we found that at Hill Walk Tours. It was very easy to see the types of people who were buying our hiking tours over the previous 6 years before we developed these personas as part of our marketing strategy and our marketing plan. Question I asked last week, and I think it's a bit more challenging for SMEs that are at the startup stage. We spoke to Aisling earlier, who was very much at that stage with her company. I would say that at that stage, when you don't have the customer data, you're probably going to be relying on market research and assumptions. You know, I think something that's important to remember is that assumptions have a big part to play in marketing, and it's okay to assume. You can assume that these are the type of customers that are going to buy your product if you don't have the data to prove. But with assumptions, you have to trial and test them and continuously change and challenge those assumptions if there isn't the proof there when you go to market and you start selling online. So these personas, as I said, were developed. It was 6 years of customer data telling us that, you know, there was a lot of Americans buying our tours, there was a lot of Germans buying our tours, and there was a lot of people from the Netherlands buying our tours. We had information on their age. We didn't have information on their jobs and their salaries, which you will see here. But you can use assumptions in that case. But what we did, and you might think, oh, that's a waste of time, or are we really allowed to do that? But we actually looked up the LinkedIn profiles of a lot of our high-value customers to find out what they did. And the trends emerged straight away. That the people who were coming back time and time again, spending thousands of euros with us every year to book a hiking tour, were university professors, head teachers in schools. They held high positions in hospitals when we found them on LinkedIn. So there was trends starting to emerge straight away in terms of what kind of jobs and what kind of salaries these people were on. And then it all made sense. Well, they were spending so much money with us because they were on quite high salaries, or because they were in jobs that had a lot of annual leave. So I'll just take you through three of the personas that we, example personas that the kinds of personas that we developed here that would later then drive our marketing tactics. So the first one was an American called Jane. This is a fictional persona, but very much true in terms of the demographic that we were selling our hiking tours to. So Jane is a 64-year-old university professor, average salary of $90,000 per year. Her adult kids have moved out, but they keep in touch on Facebook. That's very important for the next piece of work, which is the tactics. So that this demographic is active on Facebook. She keeps in touch with her kids on Facebook. She walks with her husband, so she's going to be looking for tours where she walks with one other person, and that very much influences the messaging and the imagery that we're going to use in our marketing, because someone like Jane who walks with one other person isn't going to see images of group walks, for example, 4 people walking on the Dingle Way in Ireland. That's not going to convince her persona to book a tour. She wants to see people like her who are walking with their husband or one other person. So Jane, the persona called Jane, has Irish ancestors and dreams about holidaying in Ireland. We found that with our customers. When you look through the surnames of American people who booked hiking tours, they were all Irish surnames. So they were very much second generation, third generation Irish people. And that influenced our marketing and our messaging when we came to developing the tactics. And Jane, then, the 64-year-old university professor, she wants an easy walk with no climbs. So that's able to influence then the sort of products that we push at people like Jane after we find out where that persona hangs out. And that's the goal and objective, very much related to the previous slide. Her goal is to kind of go back and immerse herself in the homeland of her ancestors on an easy walk with no steep climbs. So that persona then would influence the tactics that we decide to do when it comes to devising our marketing plan. A second persona we had then, which is completely different and would define and decide the other marketing tactics that we do for this persona, is Stephanie, a 55-year-old nurse manager, a German lady based in Germany. Average salary of around 70,000 euros. She's single and she doesn't have a lot of annual leave, which tells us that she doesn't have time to do 10 or 12-day walks. So we're going to send marketing messaging out there that advertises our shorter walks, or sorry, she has lots of annual leave. So we're going to do the opposite. I got a little bit mixed up there. We're going to show her marketing messaging that does advertise longer walks, 10-day walks, 11-day walks, 12-day walks, because she has the time to come and take those. She doesn't use social media, which is really important when we're targeting this persona. We're not going to waste money on German Facebook ads or German Instagram ads or German Twitter ads, because this persona, we feel, doesn't use social media, but she does use Google to choose her next holiday. So we would be much better placed to invest in things like Google ads and invest in German speakers who can write Google ads and people who can then optimize our German website for German SEO, because the persona that Stephanie represents are using search engines to find out information about their next hiking holiday. She walks with her sister, so again, she might not have a husband, and she might walk with a sister or female friends. That influences the imagery that we're going to use. She's a passion for the Scottish Highlands. We noticed in our trends that a lot of German people wanted to walk in Scotland, and they were the customers that we had. So we designed marketing messaging imagery around the Highlands in German. And she's fit and involved in sport. So again, we were able to see that a lot of German people took challenging walks. So again, our moderate walks, so that would influence the type of products that we push at that persona. And finally, then we had a different persona. Mark is a Dutch 38-year-old marketing manager with a lower salary than the other personas, average salary of 45,000 euros. So again, you might be looking at the kind of cheaper products to push at Dutch people like Mark. He's a heavy user of Instagram and follows various influencers. So what we would do in that case is we would highlight maybe Dutch hiking influencers, people who have large followings on Instagram who post about hiking and are Dutch, because it's likely that a lot of their followers fit into this persona. So we did work with various influencers, and we pushed Instagram ads out to people in the Netherlands as well. We geo-targeted them so that they were only shown for people in the Netherlands. And Mark, and a lot of this is true for a lot of Dutch people, speaks a high level of English and mainly consumes the internet through English. And we really found that when we were targeting Dutch people at Hillwalk Tours, that although we developed a Dutch website, lots of them just use the English one. They're pretty much fluent in English and consume a lot of their media in English, which is important. We didn't have to invest then in Dutch speakers in the office, and we didn't have to spend money on hiring Dutch SEO writers or translators, which was helpful. We were spending money in areas that was going to benefit us down the line. And Mark then, and a lot of Dutch people, he wants to hike in England, but he's got limited annual leave. So we would push products like 4-day and 5-day hiking tours at him, because he's not going to have the annual leave to come and take a 12-day tour in England. And just to note there, based on Jonathan's previous slide, that's an example of a pain point. He's got limited holidays, so he doesn't want to engage with marketing messaging that's advertising stuff, holidays that are too long for him that he can't take. So it's important to address those pain points and those objectives in your marketing messaging based on the personas that you've developed for your business. So I'm going to go on now to the next slide and just give you an example of the types of marketing tactics that we then implemented based on those personas that we've developed. And it's really important that when you've developed your personas, that your marketing tactics are driven by those personas and they match up with the behaviors of the personas that you're targeting. And that really, for me, solves that question of what digital marketing should we be doing? Should we be on every social media platform? And you meet so many businesses that say, we're tweeting every day and we've got great images, but nobody likes or nobody engages with our tweets. Why is that? And you need to really question if your personas and the people that buy your product are on Twitter, and if they're using Twitter in their professional life or their personal life, and are they using social media to actually influence their buying behaviors, or are they only using it to talk to family and connect with people in their personal life? So based on the 3 personas here, Jane, you remember, was the American university professor who had quite a high salary. She used Facebook to connect with her adult children who'd moved out. So we would then develop Facebook ad campaigns targeted at users who work at universities in the US. So a lot of these platforms that offer paid ads have great geo-targeting services, and all of the information that you give when you join a social media platform is available to advertisers and businesses. It's something that as users we don't like to hear, but when you have your marketing hat on and your business hat on, it is very useful. And there's so many people out there who put their job on Facebook and put up where they work. And that's helpful then to, for example, people like us at Hillwalk Tours who knew we wanted to target people in US universities. So we then knew that Jane had ancestors in Ireland, and she wanted to immerse herself in Ireland and connect with Ireland because of her family history there. So we focused heavily on those images of Ireland in our ad copy, and we used high quality images of Ireland, typical images of Ireland. We found out, funnily enough, that certainly people who want to hike in Ireland, they love sheep. They love pictures of sheep, especially Americans. So we used a lot of sheep in our images, which is quite humorous, but it worked. And you can find out that through kind of a period of trial and error with different imagery. You can. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how vanity likes don't bring in revenue, but actually your vanity likes can kind of give you an indication of what kind of social media content people enjoy and engage with, even though it might not drive them to book or buy your product straight away. So then,
So,
because
Jamie,
yes,
so were you doing A/B tests with sheep and cows or something?
yeah, pretty similar, to be honest. I mean, when I had joined the company, that was a kind of an anecdote that was told, that they love pictures of sheep. But I really did see that in the analytics and the data when we pushed out that imagery. Certainly we did an A/B test on Instagram where we used to put text overlays on our images on Instagram, and it really didn't work at all. People on Instagram just want to see landscapes and pure images. Certainly in the case of Hill Walk Tours, they don't like the types of marketing messaging that you might get away with on Twitter or Facebook, where you put text overlaid on an image. So that was an A/B test we did on Instagram, that we found out that they just want to see a canvas of landscapes. But yeah, I'd encourage anyone that isn't sure about that to do your sort of A/B test. Trial and error, send images out there that maybe you don't feel comfortable sending out because you think it's not going to work. Well, trust the data and the analytics that come back, and really let those numbers define then the types of imagery that you put out after that. So Jane as well was someone who we decided liked easier walks and didn't like to climb too much when she was hiking. So we advertised easy walks in the premium cost bracket because she was on a higher salary. So we felt that's the product that this persona was most likely to be interested in. She had a lot more disposable income. Her adult children had moved out, and she was on quite a high salary at a university. So that defined the products that we pushed at Americans that fit this persona category. And then marketing messaging, I think this is quite important. It's not easy to do it as an SME, and certainly you probably don't have to worry about this too much if you're only operating in Ireland, but marketing messaging should speak to Jane, and that means it should be in American English because she's American. And that's something that I've found really important over the years. As I worked in the UK, and when I first went over there, I was used to writing in the kind of American-Irish blend of English that we learn in school here in Ireland. And I got pulled up on it so many times, using Z's instead of S's when I was writing organization. And it helped me because it really is important to get into the minds and the habits of your customers when you're working in marketing. It might seem like something small, but Americans like to read marketing messaging in the words they understand and the language they understand. And we all speak English, but there are different nuances that are worth taking into consideration. So moving on to Stephanie, then she was the German nurse manager. She was on, I think, 70,000 euros a year. She wanted to walk with her sister or a female friend. For her persona, we focused on optimizing our German website for SEO and running Google ad campaigns in German for popular German hiking keywords. That goes back to my last point about languages and speaking to people in a language they know. I think so much of the success of Hill Walk Tours can be attributed to the fact that although we're a Galway company set up by Irish people, we went out there. I mean, Galway is a hub of talent for people from the EU who have second and third languages, who are, brilliant, and who can come in and write content for a German website or a Dutch website, who can write marketing messaging in these languages that we don't understand. So Hill Walk Tours made that decision to hire people in Galway who were German, who were Dutch, who were French, and who could speak to our target audience in the language they understood. It was really a move that yielded a lot of really positive results. So with Stephanie's persona, we did that. We focused on German SEO, Google ad campaigns in Germany. We used imagery and ads that appealed to female walkers who holiday with other female friends. That would be in terms of pushing out images of two females together walking a famous hiking trail in Scotland, for example. We would advertise more moderate and challenging hikes over a longer period because she was fit and into sports and she had more annual leave. So that was the product she was most likely interested in. And we produced a lot of SEO optimized blog content in German that focused on the benefits of hiking for keeping fit and healthy. Because we knew that Stephanie wasn't on social media, but she did use Google. So that when she went to search in German for hikes that will keep you fit, or the benefits of hiking for positive well-being and fitness and health, that she would then find our blogs if we had optimized them for SEO in German. And we hired a lot of freelancers as well to write German blogs. There's websites out there, I think a lot of people know them, like Upwork and like Fiverr, where you can hire quite talented people to do a lot of good SEO work and other marketing work for your company. There's a lot of spoofers out there as well, so be careful with who you hire. But there are freelancers out there who are very cost effective and skilled at writing in languages that perhaps you don't know. So moving on finally to Mark then, he was the Dutch guy, a bit younger. He was a marketing manager on 45,000 euros a year. For him, because he used Instagram so much and engaged with influencers, we created Instagram ads that targeted Dutch hiking enthusiasts, people who used hashtags around hiking, who followed hiking accounts. Ads were in English due to the fact that there was a high level of English spoken by young Dutch professionals. So again, I mentioned we didn't really have to hire any Dutch writers or speakers when we were targeting that persona. We used imagery in ads that showed people similar to the persona being targeted, young professionals. So for marketing messaging and imagery for Mark's persona, it's younger people around his age bracket. Again, people want to see people like them doing the things that they want to do. We advertised shorter, less expensive hiking holidays because he didn't have as much annual leave and had a lower salary as well because he was probably less experienced than the other personas. And we researched and engaged with Dutch hiking content creators and influencers as well to help promote our products. So there was a bit of a research piece where we went out there and found Dutch people who post Instagram photos and stories about hiking and who do hikes, and we worked with them. In another case, we actually paid an English hiking influencer to come and take one of our tours and document the whole thing and film a documentary. And that was huge. I mean, if they have thousands and thousands of followers, that's an audience that doesn't know about your product or your business. But the minute this person starts talking about them and showing them what it's like to experience a hiking tour in Ireland, you've tapped into a whole new demographic and audience that you didn't have before. So there's a lot of benefits of working with influencers. I think we talked about last week how there's a lot of pitfalls as well. And you really have to be careful in terms of pricing the different influencers. Someone mentioned last week that some of the prices being thrown around now by influencers are crazy. But if you go out to enough influencers and get different quotes, you'll find that there's no real trend. There's people charging crazy money and there's people charging quite decent money. And it's important as well to really look deeply into the followers that they have. What kind of people do they fit your personas? You know, is there 10,000 Marks following the influencer you want to work with, or is it a few Marks and loads of Daves who are a persona that you're not targeting? So that's really important. And also just do a bit of background research on the influencer themselves, because I think I mentioned last week that there has been a lot of kind of news stories about influencers doing dodgy things that has affected their reputation. So it's worth working with influencers that you know are above board and that aren't going to misrepresent your brand and your business. So that's just an example, I think, of how we decided the different tactics based on the personas we've developed. And it means that, you know, from a strategic point of view, a highly targeted point of view, we didn't have to go out there and try different things that we didn't know were going to work. We didn't put much effort into Twitter because we found out that there wasn't really hikers on Twitter that were going to buy our product. We did put we spent a lot of money on Google Ads. I'm not going to mention the figure, but it's very high, you know. But in the early years, they worked. Google Ads, when we could optimize them in German and English, they brought in a lot of customers for Hillwalk Tours. They got to a point then, around the time I was hired, where just focusing on Google Ads didn't work anymore. So we had to develop an integrated marketing plan that tapped into other channels based on these diverse personas. So I hope that's answered a few questions around where SMEs should be pushing their marketing messaging, what platforms they should be on. And I suppose at this point, I'm happy to open it up to questions or engagement to the audience and indeed the panel that have joined here today as well.
There's everything else is order taking. So please don't be order takers, be sellers.